Hey everyone, this is Nick and welcome back to the Linux and open source news show. This week we've got KDE Plasma planning some big changes after a sprint in Austria. We've got Wikipedia planning to add AI to help moderators. This is sure to ruffle some feathers. And we also have OpenSUSE leaping into the future with OpenSUSE Leap 16, plus a bunch of other things, including this segue to our sponsor. This video is sponsored by SquareSpace, your all-in-one platform to create, publish, and manage your own website. Squarespace has really easy tools to make sure that anyone can end up with a nice-looking, well-optimized website, no matter if they know how to code or not. They have what they call their blueprint system, which lets you pick from a variety of templates that are pre-built, and they will suit any type of website you want, whether it's a simple blog, an online store, a video platform, whatever. All these templates are also optimized to give you solid SEO, and they also give you SEO tools to keep optimizing the website and to make sure that you don't end up at the very last page of Google search results. On top of that, to go further, Squarespace has their own design engine to create your own pages. You can just drag and drop elements where you want them, and you can change the colors, the fonts, and tweak the template however you want. And once you have something you like, you can add extra features, like creating your own online shop, complete with a payment system. You can design your own logo from Squarespace, or you can even book your own domain name. So check out squarespace.com/TheLinuxExperiment or just click the link in the description and you'll get 10% off your first website or domain purchase. Okay, so KDE Sprint happened this week in Austria, where a bunch of things were discussed. So here is what happened. First, the Plasma LTS releases are now basically done. KDE used to maintain long-term support versions of their desktop and apps and frameworks, but apparently these versions didn't really meet people's expectations of what an LTS actually is. People likely expected these to get most bug fixes, most security fixes backported to them, but this was done more on a case-by-case basis. It seemed to have been an extra burden on the KDE team, so now all future Plasma releases will be supported for longer instead, but the LTS releases will no longer really exist. The team also decided that in 4 months they will assess whether Plasma moves to 2 releases per year instead of the 3 they do right now, depending on how much progress is done on the remaining Wayland-specific issues that they want to fix before that transition can happen. KDE is also removing some theming ability from very specific parts of the desktop, where executing random QML code was not the best idea. So the on-screen display elements, the splash screens, and the lock screens will no longer be themable using QML. They will still be themable using basic images, but no longer through actual code. Third-party widgets and wallpaper plugins will also run in a sandbox in the future, so they cannot blow up the desktop anymore. KDE also brainstormed on how they could handle third-party themes and plugins and all the stuff you can install through the Get New Stuff windows that KDE has all over its settings. And while this doesn't really seem settled yet, things might change in the future to make those things a bit more secure, maybe even with an approval mechanism to make sure that what goes into these little windows is relatively safe and quality controlled. KDE developers are also thinking about building a system service to handle activities. Applications could basically just declare their various profiles or sessions, and KDE activities could then use one of these profiles. You can think about your email client displaying your work email account in your work activity and just your personal email account in your personal activity. Or your web browser switching to your work profile when you're using the work activity and moving back to your personal profile when moving back to your personal activity. This is still in discussion, there is no deadline yet, but it would be a welcome improvement. KDE will also change how they handle telemetry. They'll handle that as a hardware survey, much akin to what Steam does. You'll see a pop-up asking you if you want to participate in KDE's survey, and if you do, you will see what kind of data is being collected, and you'll be able to send it to KDE or not. You'll be able to say no once or to say no forever if you never want to be prompted by this thing. So that's a lot of cool stuff. I would really enjoy seeing activities being expanded upon to the point where applications can actually plug in properly with them. It would make those things a lot more useful. But also adding quality control and some amount of verification on the various plugins and widgets and themes that are added into KDE would be very nice. Maybe through a mechanism of this has been vetted by KDE, this hasn't, or maybe through an entirely separate store where only KDE curated content would be, although this would probably take a lot of manpower to check whether things are proper or really bad. If you were a KDE Linux user 20 years ago, you might have used KDE 3.5. It was a very nice, very stable, and very customizable desktop environment that honestly just destroyed anything else at the time. And if you have nostalgia for this version of KDE, there's the Trinity project, which provides basically KDE 3.5 but on modern distro basis. They just released a new version called R14.1.4, and it now supports the latest Ubuntu releases, 25.04, and Fedora 43 as well, although that one is far from being released. They even added a few more things in that desktop, like themes and color schemes to change a little bit the look and feel of the desktop. There's support for Unicode, surrogate characters, there's support for multiple tabs in the PDF reader, there's an analyzer view in the video and audio player, there's better handling of thin window borders when it comes to resizing these windows with your mouse cursor, there's a graphical module to pick alternative packages for RPMs and debs, there's a better context menu for the applet that lets you handle monitors, although it's based on Xrender because as far as I could tell, that desktop is X11 based only. And I find it extremely fun that KDE 3.5 lives on. It's the desktop that I used a lot back when I started using Linux. I started with Ubuntu and thus GNOME 2, but I very quickly moved on to KDE 3.5 because it was the most themable one. I remember using Bagheera, which was an ensemble of scripts that let you theme your KDE 3.5 desktop to look like macOS of the time, complete with brushed aluminium on certain surfaces and the pinstripes on others. It was just a great time. So if you want to give a little shot at this very nostalgic desktop, give a shot to Trinity. It looks fun. Now, Wikipedia will be using AI to help human contributors write the content of what is the de facto knowledge base of the internet. They say they will use AI to help moderators and patrollers to check the integrity of what's being written on Wikipedia. They will also use it to improve the discoverability of the information, so humans have more time to deliberate and to make judgments on what should be accepted in a page and what shouldn't. They will also use AI tools to automate translations and to onboard new contributors. Now, in their announcement, Wikipedia really emphasized that they're adding AI to help the human process, not to replace it, and that human agency is still the priority. They are also focusing on transparency, presumably in how and where AI is used. In a longer, more detailed analysis, they clearly recognize the risks in using AI to generate knowledge and articles, notably the biases, the hallucinations, and the misinformation that AI is best known for. They concluded that they need to support editors with AI, not to try and replace them with AI. They also said that they would try and use open source models, but if something like that is not available or suitable, they will use open weight models instead. It looks like they thought about it quite a bit. I'm still not a fan of seeing AI pop up everywhere, including on Wikipedia, which is now a relatively reliable source of information, but at least they see that AI isn't really good at generating stuff. It doesn't replace human creativity really well, but it is not bad at helping humans automate some tedious or annoying or complicated tasks. So using AI for that is nice, but I hope they don't start generating AI articles inside Wikipedia because that would destroy any form of credibility. And it took Wikipedia a long time to get that credibility. Back when I was a student, a long way back, everyone told us, do not use Wikipedia. It is not a credible, recognized source. Nowadays, no one really thinks that about Wikipedia. So I would really hate it to see that giant knowledge base be destroyed by all the AI problems. Now, OpenSUSE Leap 16 has its first beta, and they're finally moving to a much newer Linux stack. Wayland will apparently entirely replace X11 as the only option for sessions there, with X11 still being there for X Wayland, of course. sys5 init is also completely gone out of the distro, leaving systemd in charge for the core of the distro, and the new installer is also now the default, which is a good thing because the previous one was very powerful but super convoluted, and the new one doesn't really seem to have lost much, but it looks and feels a lot nicer to use. Yast's graphical interface is also gone, from Leap 16 being replaced by Merlin and Cockpit. Merlin being the package manager, which looks like your average package manager. Think Synaptic, but being built with Qt as far as I could tell. It looks really outdated if you think about an app store, but for a package manager, it's exactly what you need. You click little checkboxes next to packages, you click apply, and you install or remove or fix versions for various packages. It's not supposed to look all nice and shiny. Cockpit will be the system management tool, replacing the previous Yast graphical tools, which were functional but looked really awful and weren't super easy to get a handle on. Cockpit looks much simpler. As far as I can tell, it's like a web interface. Leap 16 also leaves behind older 64-bit CPUs. It now requires the x86 64v2 architecture, but most CPUs of the past decade should be more than fine. Leap also enables SE Linux out of the box, although AppArmor is still available as a community-maintained option. As per the desktop experience, it will be GNOME 48 or Plasma 6.3, although they will likely move to 6.4 when the distro launches. That's a very interesting shift for Leap, which for once deserves its name. It leaps into the future, replacing a lot of older components by basically what is the modern standard for a modern distro, or at least for most modern distros. I don't generally review OpenSUSE Leap on the channel because I find it a bit outdated, but this version will very likely get its own video on the channel because it seems like it changes a lot of stuff. Now, Firefox got another update this week, version 138, which continues the trend of adding new stuff at a much faster pace than before. So first, all the tab group stuff is now available to everyone. Apparently, Mozilla opened the floodgates on this. It was previously, as far as I could tell, limited to a certain subset of users, but now everyone can enjoy that. Also, profile management has been much improved. Now, you do need to go enable those profiles in the About config menu. You can set browser.profiles.enabled to true, but once you do that, in the main menu, you've got profiles. You can create a new profile, you can switch to a specific one, and these profiles let you, of course, apply different extensions, different settings, different bookmarks. Basically, you can have a work or a personal profile that don't use the same settings and extensions. Those profiles already existed, but now they are much improved, although they are still hidden behind a preference. You can also right-click a background tab and copy its link from the menu. Users in the US can get weather information in the weather bar when they start typing for weather info. And there's also a new contrast control setting that lets you automatically change the colors on websites to improve readability. Firefox also added a report broken site option in the main menu, so you can basically say, hey, this website isn't working well, here is what's not working, and Mozilla can try and fix the rendering of that website for other users. So it is another big release of Firefox. I like seeing them moving so fast. Just because I don't think Mozilla is that trustworthy today doesn't mean that I don't enjoy Firefox as a product. I use a fork. I hope most of that stuff comes to that fork, but I'm still happy to see the browser make good progress. But also, still on Firefox, the terms and conditions change is almost there. Firefox 139 is entering public beta, and the main change seems to be a pop-up that appears when you open Firefox after the update or for the first time, and it's asking you to read the terms of use, the privacy notice, and to manage the diagnostic data, so you can disable the opt-in telemetry or opt-out telemetry in this case right from the get-go. Apparently, you cannot move past this pop-up until you click the Confirm and Continue button, meaning you have to agree to the terms before using the browser, which in itself is normal for software. A lot of software does that, but these terms, as we discussed previously in a video, can be changed in the background without notifying you. So can the privacy policy. Fortunately, there is hope for this thing to be bypassed, because apparently the official deb package from Firefox, or the developer edition that Firefox pushes to the AUR, these don't have that pop-up yet. So maybe distros and package maintainers will be able to disable this screen, although I don't see how they could still call the browser Firefox if they did such a change, because legally you are not agreeing to the terms, and so this could be a liability for Mozilla, so they probably would ask that these browsers be rebranded. Now, there are other smaller changes in Firefox 139, but this pop-up is sure to stir up some controversy again. I think the dust had settled a bit on this, but with this very visible change, it is sure to kick it up a notch once again. Honestly, right now, if you look at the terms of use and the privacy policy, there's nothing horrendous in there, but it does give Mozilla and Firefox the ability to collect and use the information that they deem necessary for the browser, and these terms can change from under you without you having to accept them again. By just using the browser, you will accept to the modification of these terms, which I don't really like. Most tech-savvy or privacy-focused people will know about these changes and make a decision then, but for a lot of other people, it will be transparent, and I don't think that's a good look. And let's conclude this episode with some gaming news. Proton 10 now has a beta. A few months after the release of Wine 10, on which obviously Proton is based, Valve and Codeweavers, which are the main developers for Wine and also are helping Valve quite a bit with Proton, they've launched the new beta. And it makes a bunch of games officially playable when before they were only supported by Proton Experimental. Now, these games include Batman Arkham Asylum Game of the Year Edition, Factorio, Flight Simulator 2024, No Man's Sky VR, and a bunch more. The new Proton beta also updates DXVK, DXVK NV API, VKD3D, Mono, and all the other underlying libraries that let all this translation and this gaming work. They're updated to their latest stable versions. There are plenty of game-specific fixes as well for better performance, for bug fixes, better support for various overlays, game stores, so the usual in a Proton update. One thing the release notes do not mention though is the Wayland driver that Wine 10 added. Wine 10 is capable of running entirely using Wayland with no more X-Wayland. I suppose Valve did not decide to move Proton to rely on that Wayland support by default, even if you run games with Proton on Wayland specifically. Which is not entirely a surprise because even on Wine, I think the Wayland support only really was enabled if you had no access to X11, including X-Wayland. So the fact that Valve decided not to go with it on Proton yet is sort of normal. I just hope it doesn't take them an entire year until Proton 11 to enable full Wayland gaming. It would be nice to have an option to at least give it a shot and give them some feedback on what works and what doesn't. And that concludes this episode. I leave you on this segue to our sponsor, Tuxedo Computers. You probably all know about them by now. They make laptops and desktops that ship with Linux pre-installed, which means that all the hardware is really compatible with Linux. They have a big range of computers that will fit every price point and every need, and they're all I use personally. Everything I create around Linux and on my other channel talking about Warhammer, it's done on one of their laptops, the Infinity Book Pro 16, and all my gaming is done on one of their desktops, which is the Tuxedo Cube. So if you need a new computer, you plan to run Linux on it, you want to support a company that actually contributes to Linux, then click the link in the description and check out Tuxedo Computers. So thanks everyone for watching or listening to this episode. You know what to do with all the usual YouTube buttons, you know why they're important. I'm not going to repeat myself all the time, so click them if you want. In the meantime, all the links as usual are in the description, links to support the channel as well. Thank you all for watching or listening, and I guess you'll see me in the next one. Bye!